The EQS in the updated 2025 version, that's the one here, it is known for its ultra-long range. This version is stated to have 815 kilometers of WLTP range. In this trim with the large wheels and so on, it's 777. In this video, we compare the practical range of the EQS with two other relevant electric cars. And electric cars' long-distance capabilities come down to three things. First is range. This depends on the car's battery capacity and also how energy efficient the car is. The second is the car's ability to charge, that is the charging speed. How quickly can the car regain kilometers on the battery? And the third thing concerns the car's software. How good is the car at helping you plan your route? This might be the car that sets the standard for today, but perhaps even more interestingly, it shows what might be possible tomorrow. This is actually my second video with this Mercedes EQS 450 Plus. And in many ways, it really feels like a sort of continuation. It's kind of like a part 2 video following up on what I covered before. If you haven't seen the first video, you can watch it via the link up here in the corner. And it's in that first video that I declare this might be the best car in the world. And that's before I even start digging into the car's party trick, which is its impressive electric range. That's what this video is going to be about. As I also mentioned in part 1 of the 2-part video, that is the video released just before this one, the EQS is the direct competitor to BMW's i7. A 7 Series has always specifically targeted the same group of customers as an S-Class. And funnily enough, after having driven both the i7 and now the EQS, I actually think that these two cars are without a doubt the best cars in the world right now. They simply offer the most refined driving experience when it comes to comfort. They also offer some of the most impressive technology you can get at the moment. This is where you see a showcase of what's possible. But there are also differences. The EQS here is more focused on aerodynamics and range than the i7. It was actually the case that when I drove the i7 exactly a year ago, in mid-April 2024, and I'm recording this video today, April 11, 2025, well, back then I drove the top version of the i7, this M70X drive, and it comes with all-wheel drive and all the bells and whistles. And that is not the car with the longest range. It has a WLTP rated range of up to 559 kilometers. An EQS 450 Plus can actually get a WLTP rated range of up to 815 kilometers. That's why it's not enough to compare those two in this video. That's why I'm bringing a third car into this equation. The third car is my current range record holder on my Odense challenge. That's the fixed route I drive with all the cars I test when it comes to highway range. That car is the Tesla Model 3 long-range all-wheel drive in the Highland version, which, funnily enough, I also drove in the spring of 2024. That was in May, and I'm well aware that this car in no way can be compared to an EQS or an i7. It doesn't have the same refinement in driving experience, build quality, and all those other things. But on a couple of key points, it is actually comparable. It's insanely energy efficient, and it has incredibly good software, and that's why I'm including that car in the equation as well. And then there will be people out there shouting at me right now, saying, but there's actually a model that's supposed to be even more energy efficient, namely a long-range rear-wheel drive Tesla Model 3. That's true as well. I've actually used that car to guide an Odense challenge, so I'm basing my assessment on the data I actually have, which is even relatively comparable because they were collected during the same season. But before I jump into my comparison of these cars' performance on the highway, I still want to take that trip around the fjord. That's something I've only started doing fairly recently. Right around the turn of the year, I began conducting a country road test too. I haven't actually done that with the i7 or the Tesla, but I still want to show you with this car because it really put some things into perspective for me when I drove around the fjord the other day. It says 35% battery left when I finally reach Sundevik. Right now, I currently have in total 45%. I just need to start a stopwatch. I'll do that now, right away. Let's go. It's time for us to move forward together, leaving behind any doubts or hesitation. With confidence and determination, we can embrace the opportunities ahead and make this moment count as we begin our journey. Now I'm halfway there. What I'm going to do now is navigate back towards Varde. We go through the numbers. So let's get a split time. And can you see it? 59 and about 12 seconds. That was the beautiful trip around Ringkøbing Fjord. 140 kilometers timed, 1 hour and 59 minutes. Time to cover 140 kilometers. Average speed, 70.5 kilometers per hour. Onboard computer, 160 watt-hours per kilometer. And that's actually less than the car's WLTP rating, but I'm also well aware that this is a different cycle. It was pure country road driving. If I look at the percentage points used from the battery, it was 17 to 18 percentage points that disappeared there. And that gives this car a practical range on country roads, under the conditions I drove that trip, of just about 750 kilometers. In other words, this car is capable of driving on country roads for somewhere between 10 and 11 hours on a single charge before you need power again. Pretty impressive. But let's get to the point. I need to do this Odense challenge in this EQS, and then I'll have some numbers that I can compare in the spreadsheet to see how it performs compared to the i7 from BMW, but also very much to the Tesla. And it's important for me to emphasize that the numbers I come up with here represent a worst case scenario. The route I drive for my Odense challenge is the absolute fastest stretch of motorway you can drive in Denmark. My experience actually shows that when I've driven on the Autobahn in Germany, I usually end up with an average speed that's about the same as on my Odense challenge, where there isn't much roadwork and I can just maintain a steady speed the whole time. And that's why these are figures where the consumption will be higher than it would be in practice elsewhere. That's important for me to emphasize. But let's see how the EQS performs on these 258 kilometers of motorway in Denmark. I'm at the charging station at Esbjerg Airport. The rule for my Odense challenge is that I charge to 80%, drive to the roundabout, exit 50, and then return again. I'm pretty sure I'll be able to do it without charging, and maybe even with such a big margin that I might get a little cocky at the very end. But let's see. Right now I'm charging. As mentioned, I leave it at 80%. I just need a tiny bit more, then I'll be ready. Then I can get my trip prepared. I can head towards the lathe. The car tells me that I'll arrive at the lathe with 46% state of charge and that I currently have 75, so it needs 29 percentage points to get there. Curious if true. The temperatures are relatively low, it's foggy. I'm driving on winter tires, those are the parameters I'm factoring in. Now I'm waiting until I'm ready to head off, then we'll go. I reached 80% and I've already unplugged the charger. So what I'm going to do now is reset the consumption. Then there's a timing, then those who are driving will go. Then the route was set for Odense, and on my usual stretch, I measured the cabin noise at 130 kilometers per hour. After that, the boy racer in me needed to be let out for it. I just pulled over for a moment. I'd like to see just how quick this car is. It's rated to be pretty reasonable for a rear-wheel drive electric car, and it also feels powerful when I'm driving it. I'm switching it over to sport mode, where all the settings are suspension, drivetrain, steering and so on are set to sport. I've got the race box mounted on the windshield. And then let's try launching the car from 0 to 130 kilometers per hour and see if we can pull some numbers from that. In 100 meters, turn slightly to the right. 3, 2, 1. That's quick enough. 100. That is not bad at all. 0 to 100 in 5.92. I'm pretty sure that's faster than what Mercedes claims. 0 to 130, 9.04. And the car changes lanes by itself without me losing any speed. It's so smooth. Love it. Stopping for a red light, and can we get a split time there? A 0.7, which is a pretty decent split time considering that I also did an acceleration test. I arrived with 55% state of charge and the current consumption is 230 watt-hours per kilometer. Now I've set the navigation back towards Esbjerg Airport. The car says I'll reach Esbjerg Airport with 29%. It was pretty accurate on the way here, so I guess it should be quite correct when we head back again. As you can see in the video, the weather improves as the day goes on. The temperatures rise, and since I also went in to do my acceleration test, I do as I usually do. I subtract 3 minutes from my total time when I get back to Esbjerg Airport. Now I'm back. Let's just take the time here. 2 hours and 13 minus the 3 minutes. 2 hours and 10.5 minutes. That's pretty good. The consumption, 223 watt hours per kilometer. What's impressive is that the car software is spot on. I'm back in Esbjerg with 31% state of charge. That means I've used. Now, pay attention. I've actually used a total of 49 percentage points in order to drive these 258 kilometers. That's probably a record. Oh well, I'd also like to do a charging test. So I'm actually thinking now I have a great opportunity to take a long drive, and I'll probably be on the highway for a bit. So I'll just see where I end up. And then I'll burn off some more power so I can do a charging test from 10 to 80% with a preconditioned battery. I actually ended up driving back over the Little Belt Bridge, turning around at Edsbjerg Fjord, and then drove to Ionity in Fredericia with a preconditioned battery to do my charging test. 10 to 80% in, well, about half an hour. That's exactly as Mercedes promises. And I actually think it's worth noting that the car can handle almost these 200 kilowatts. 50%, that's approved. When we look at this Odense challenge, it went as I expected. Of course, the car could drive there and back again those 258 kilometers without needing to charge. But there are a couple of factors that should be addressed. The EQS there is the only one of the 3 cars that drives on one axle, so it only has one motor. It's rear-wheel drive. Both the BMW and Tesla drive on all 4 wheels, and all-wheel drive electric cars inevitably have slightly higher consumption. On the other hand, the Mercedes is the only one of the 3 cars that's running on winter tires, and winter tires also result in slightly higher consumption. Apart from that, the weather is just as it is in Danish spring, but I'll make sure to do my best to illustrate what the conditions were like for each of the 3 cars. Let's try to analyze how the 3 cars performed in the test. The BMW i7 Mercedes xDrive is the most powerful of the 3 cars. It has a factory stated range of 560 kilometers. The Tesla is the smallest, cheapest, and most energy efficient car in the test. It has a range of 678 kilometers with my test equipment. The EQS has the longest range at 777 kilometers, but was the only one running on winter tires. The BMW has a traction battery of 101.7 kilowatt hours, the Tesla about 75 kilowatt hours, and the EQS has 118 kilowatt hours. All 3 cars were driven in Danish springtime. Naturally, there are nuances in the weather on the different days. By the way, the tire pressure in all 3 cars meets the manufacturer's recommendations. The average speed was solely affected by traffic and roadwork. BMW averaged 117 kilometers per hour, Tesla 120, and EQS 119. Consumption was highest for BMW at 243 watt hours per kilometer. 64 percentage points disappeared from the battery, giving a full charge range of about 418 kilometers. The Tesla had by far the most impressive consumption at just 164 watt hours per kilometer. 57% disappeared from the battery, and the realistic range on a full charge is 455 kilometers for the trip. The EQS achieved a consumption of 223 watt hours per kilometer, with 49 percentage points used from the traction battery. This results in a realistic range on a full charge for this specific trip of 529 kilometers. When it comes to the discipline of charging from 10 to 80%, the BMW was the slowest. It took 34 minutes to add 292 kilometers back to the battery. The Tesla took 32 minutes for the exercise, which added 318 kilometers. The EQS was the fastest at 30 minutes. That added 370 kilometers to the battery. There's also something else I'd like to add. All three, the Tesla, the BMW and the Mercedes, here have epic software for long distance trips. The estimated state of charge, that is, the estimate the car gives you before you start your trip, of when you need to charge, how much power you'll have when you arrive and so on. It's ultra precise. All three of these cars hit within a couple of percent over these 258 kilometers. That's impressive. But I will say there are differences. If you look at the noise level inside the cabin, the BMW was the best. It ended up measuring 65 dB at 130 kilometers per hour inside the cabin. The Mercedes here measured 67 dB winter tires, and the Tesla measured almost 71 dB. So there are, of course, differences. And you can't compare the Tesla with the BMW and the Mercedes when we're talking about driving experience, refinement, and so on. But it's also an unfair comparison, since the Tesla is a significantly cheaper product. Let me also just emphasize that I chose these three cars because I think the BMW and the Mercedes are very comparable in terms of their target audience. And then there was the Tesla, which so far is simply the car that, at least in my experience with the Odense challenge, has had the best consumption. But there are other cars out there that could also join this competition. Either I just haven't done an Odense challenge with them, or I've done an Odense challenge under completely different conditions. So it's not comparable. It could be cars such as the Volkswagen ID.7, the Tesla Model S, or 800-volt cars, which can charge faster. Also, the Hyundai Ioniq 6, Xpeng G6, G9, and others. Since I'm on 800 volts, that's one of my concerns with this car. The three cars I've compared in this video are all 400-volt cars, and BMW and Mercedes are already on their way with 800-volt cars now, and that's what's going to happen. At some point in the future, this car will also get an 800-volt architecture, and that will simply mean that it will be able to charge 30, maybe even 40% faster than it does today. Despite the fact that the EQS today has a 400-volt architecture, it is still the new range king. It is the new king of my Odense challenge. I would go so far as to say that, in my opinion at least, an EQS is the best car in the world. No matter if you compare diesel, gasoline, electric, whatever, the EQS is the electric Mercedes S-Class. And for me, a Mercedes S-Class has always represented the most refined experience when it comes to driving, comfort, and technology. But since the EQS is an electric car, it simply drives more smoothly than a car with a combustion engine. That's why this is the best experience and the best car. In fact, you could say that this car has just as much range as if you had a Mercedes S-Class with a gasoline engine. There's another thing I'd also like to talk about. Normally, I do a segment on the 5 best and 5 worst things about the car, but I'm not going to do that with this one. I could simply find too many things I love about this car, and I'd have a hard time finding much more than the lack of a frunk, the price, and the factory warranty, which, as a rule, is 2 years for a car like this. I'm aware that Mercedes is currently running some kind of campaign here in 2025, but if it's just a campaign, I still consider Mercedes to be a car with a 2-year warranty. And for cars with a 2-year warranty, which I call a poor warranty, I usually check the price of an onboard charger. I've contacted Mercedes in Esbjerg. They say the onboard charger for an EQS like this costs 26,570 kroner plus VAT. That may sound like a lot, but this is being hotly debated now, and they can actually be found at even higher prices. It should be mentioned that the onboard charger in this car is a 22 kilowatt onboard charger. There's a video about electric cars. YouTube tells me that you might like this one. Here, where I'm standing with finger guns, you can click to subscribe to my channel for free. There are relevant and exciting links in the video description I think you should check out. Also, take care of yourself and each other on YouTube, and be respectful in the comments. Hey,